All right. Thanks everybody for coming in this morning. Today, I thought we've been talking about what to do, once you have the business, but let's talk a little bit about how to get the business. I think this is somewhere where a lot of people don't necessarily come in. In fact, my business partner, when he first got into the business, he went and talked to his manager and he asked, how do I find someone that wants to sell real estate? He actually handed him a phone book and said, call them all. So things have changed a little bit since then. And, there is the thought process of, call everybody, and eventually one of them might be interested in either selling or leasing or have that need for your services. That's kind of like the old school methodology of, throwing everything against the wall and hopefully something's going to stick. I actually much prefer a much more targeted approach toward generating business and going after new business. So generally what we're looking at is, we have tools and things that we can use such as CoStar, which is a really great tool because it can start pulling up information on listings that can help you target those. So for instance, number one, who's most likely to list a property either for sale or to lease? Well, first answer is going to be one that's already listed. Okay. So what you want to do is take a look at those listings and the time frames. We all understand that listings are typically either a 90-day or 180-day escrow or listing time frame. So if you have a listing that has not performed, either hasn't sold or hasn't sold for 90 days, or at least that hasn't been leased up for 180 days, they might be someone that you want to call and say, I understand that the property is currently listed with so-and-so, but I would love the opportunity to talk to you about how we might be able to improve the marketing and exposure of your property and get it leased or sold quicker when your listing expires. Obviously don't step on toes. Don't say anything bad about the other broker. Just, we'd like the opportunity, if you decide to change, to be part of that group of people that you interview for the new broker. So that's number one. Number two is also, sometimes you might work with a lot of buyers that are doing 1031s. Well, if you're a 1031 specialist, maybe you should call properties that are in escrow, the owners, and say, I understand you're in escrow. What are your plans? Are you planning on exchanging the property? And if so, what type of property are you looking to exchange into? Because here's what we do and here's how we can help you. So those are some of the ways to target, and there are other ways as well. And when we start getting into that, we can go into a little bit more because it's not just picking up the phone, but cold calling for business development is going to be the number one method of getting new business. You can touch more people that way. You can explain what you want, what you're looking for a little bit more eloquently than you can perhaps on a postcard or marketing piece. More importantly, you're going to be able to react to what that person is saying, how they're doing it. So when I talk about cold calling and and we start talking about cold calling, we'll have another class on that as well. But cold calling, the whole idea is that you want to lead the person down the path. You want to bring some quality and information and value to that call. You don't want to, again, you don't want to, old school method 30 years ago was call somebody, pick up the phone. Hi, are you looking to sell your property? Do you know anyone who is? Okay, thanks. And then hang up. That doesn't really work. I mean, if a seller is looking for someone just to list the property, they can do that themselves, using attorneys and whatever, put them on. There's enough databases out there that they can get their property sold. What they really want is someone that can get them the best deal or the best price and the best terms for their property. And that's where your value lies. So that's where, when you're making your calls, typically if I'm calling a certain particular area, I'll have the CoStar analytics up. So I can talk about the analytics, what's happening in the marketplace when we create those conversations. The bottom line is people talk to people they like, but they do business with people they trust. So to get that trust, you have to show that you have the information, you have the knowledge for their sub-market of what you're doing. So with the analytics up, we can start talking, and maybe the conversation starts going into, how's it going with your leasing? I see that it's been listed for quite some time. And if they come back with, yes, we've had some tours, but not in conversations. What do you think? Why do you think it hasn't leased? Did you know that the current market right now, we have a vacancy rate of 17%, but it's coming down. We had a good absorption this last quarter. Whatever may be happening in that submarket. Give them that information so that they can understand what's going on in the market and make wise decisions on who. But more importantly, knowing that you have that information about that submarket, they're going to trust you a little bit more than that person that calls up, and a lot more than the person that just calls up and says, are you looking to sell or lease? So bring that value, bring that education to them. This is a job of patience. It's not one of instant gratification. So you're going to be working these leads and working with them and creating that bond and that trust so that this way you do get that business and it does repeat itself. Other methods of getting out there, exposing yourself. Social media. In the past, social media used to be very, not as popular in the commercial real estate world, but in the last 5-6 years, it's really taken off and really starting to generate a lot of business for a lot of agents. I have some friends that specialize like in the TikTok side. They do $300,000-$400,000 a year just on that social media presence. I have other friends that use LinkedIn primarily for their social media campaign that are making $500,000 or more. And then you have Instagram as well and Facebook. Facebook, although older, is still probably one of the most effective means when it comes to the marketing because you can target market and target advertise up to those people. More importantly, know who your generation is. Who's the buyer? Who's your client? What's their demographic? Are they the 30-year-olds on TikTok? Not necessarily, but they probably are the 40 and 50-year-olds on Facebook. So Facebook can be a little bit more valuable in that aspect. That being said, in your social media marketing, always want to bring value again. If we're not entertainers, we're not looking to entertain people. What we're looking to do is generate business through marketing. Okay, so it's great getting views, it's great getting likes, it's great getting a whole bunch of followers. But if you're not generating business, then you're doing something wrong. It doesn't matter if you have 300,000 followers or 300 followers. If you have 300,000 followers and you have no business from your social marketing, then you're doing it wrong. You're more of an entertainer than a marketer. They're just watching you to be entertained. But if you have 300 followers and you're constantly getting business from your social media, then you're doing it right. So it's not about the quantity of the followers or the likes, but the quality. Who are you targeting? Who are you going after? And that's really, I think, where a lot of this falls apart for a lot of people when they first break into the social media marketing is, they're so attuned to influencers looking at just the metric of how many followers do I have? Well, in commercial real estate, that really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers if you're not getting any business. It may help with 1 million followers. You could probably monetize the site and make money that way, but you're not going to get necessarily listings or sales from that or buyers. So really bring value. I mean, the most successful social media stuff that we've done has been just talking about how to address and reposition your investments, what to look for and how to go about it. But what that does is it creates a immediate trust with people if you co-align with what their philosophy and thinking is when it comes to the real estate investments, so that they want to reach out to you and talk to you and learn a little bit more. Also, firm believer when it comes to social media, when it comes to any kind of marketing, even email marketing, which we're going to get into a little bit as well. I believe less is more, meaning I want to give them enough information so that they're interested and they agree and they're along my path, but not enough information for them to make a final decision or have all that knowledge. Okay, so this way they have to reach out and contact me if they have any questions or talk about it, and then I can do my job as a salesperson and sell them. Either find out what they're looking to do or help them out, try and figure out what their investment criteria is so that we can work with it that way. Email programs, also very cost effective, very good if done right. Again, email programs should always have a call to action. It's great in that making announcements, for we just sold this property, but always try and put a call to action into it. Instead of saying, just sold and show the property information, maybe just sold, multiple offers, all cash buyer, 30-day closing, and then a call to action at the end stating something like, if you would like for us to speak of our marketing plans for your property and how we might be able to accomplish the same goals that we did here, please reach out to us. So there's a call to action. So, the bottom line is if you don't ask for the business, you'll never get the business. And, so you always have to ask for it. And this goes back to way back when, when a story I like to tell a little bit is a friend of mine, he bought a new iPhone for his daughter, and this was probably an iPhone 8 at the time because I still had a button, 8 or 9. And the reason why I remember it still had a button is the very next day after he bought it for her, and it was like an $800 phone. He shows it to me, and it's literally not just a screen crack, but the button's hanging out by a wire. I mean, she must have thrown this, or if she dropped it, she kicked it along for a couple blocks as well. It was ruined. And I looked at him and I said, well, he's complaining. I just spent $800 on this. I'm not going to get her a new phone. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And he came back and said, well, I'll just find a friend or, find a used one and whatever else. So, okay, great. Cut to a few days later, we're all playing basketball. And he reaches out at the end of the basketball game and says to everybody that's playing basketball, hey, does anybody have an old iPhone that I might be able to buy from them? And then all of a sudden, ding, light bulb off. If I was a cartoon, you would have seen the light bulb over my head. And it's like, oh, wow, I have 4 from my kids. If you want one, come on over to the house. I'll wipe it, give me half an hour. I'll wipe it clean and you can have it. But until he asked for it, I didn't make that connection. And I'm a salesperson that tries to do those things as far as make those connections and try and see it. But even myself, I didn't make that connection until he asked for it, which goes back to ask for the business. Because if you don't ask for the business, people aren't going to make that connection. If you just put out, I just closed this, people aren't going to make that connection that I want your business and here's what we can do for you. They're just going to look at it as, oh, that's nice. They're successful. They just closed this. So always have some sort of call to action. And the call to action can be not just on the social, on the marketing pieces, but also when you're on the phone with someone, when you're talking to them. I'd love the opportunity to sit down with you to go over the analysis. I can do a pretty quick one. Can you send me, your rent rolls and your P&L? Have them do something for you, interact, bring stuff to the table. So make your job a little bit easier that way as well. Because once they start sending you information, especially financial information of the property, you already know that they're trusting you. And then you can do your job that much better and really tie down that pricing for them. So social media, we talked a little bit about email marketing, always have a call to action. One of the other things with email marketing that I like to do is also analyze, look at the analytics. What are the open rates? What are the click-through rates? But also understand when you're doing that, what's the average? Is this performing better than average, less than average? What's happening? Some of the things I like to do as well is if it's a listing or email for a listing, I like to test that market. So again, going back to the less is more factor, give them less information so that they will click through, so that you can capture the information and contact them and go forward with that. However, at the same time, with the emails, one of the things that I may do is if for some reason we're not getting a lot of click-throughs, or we can play with it. Maybe take the sales price off and all of a sudden, if you get double the click-throughs and double the open rate when the sales price is off, it might be a pricing factor. So that's valuable feedback that you can give your client and get the property reduced. It's hard evidence saying, we only had 4 people actually express interest in this property when we had the price on it, but when we took the price off, we had 50 people interested. It might be a pricing issue. So understand how that you can use these tools to increase your business and be more efficient. Lastly, the personal touch, okay? And this would be what's called either canvassing or block program, okay? Depending on what area of the country you're in and what type of asset class. So canvassing essentially is you're going up and down office buildings, maybe a high-rise building, and you're canvassing that building, talking to the tenants, finding out when their leases are expiring, finding out when what lease rates they're at, how their space needs are, what's happening with their business. Getting that conversation going so that you can put in your database and make sure that you can help negotiate lease renewals when it's time for the lease renewal to happen. Block program, very similar, but instead of canvassing a building, you're doing a whole block, typically done for retail because retail typically has street frontage along the block. And so you're going to hit each property there and just go that route. Residential agents may call it, door knocking. Yes, thank you. So residential agents may call it door knocking, farming, that kind of stuff. But the canvassing, very similar to canvassing block program. So those are really the ways to get your business development up to speed, up to par, really boost it up. Because the whole goal is that we're trying to get new business, but the idea is we need to be able to convey why they should get that business to us. So I think if you can target as opposed to just throwing stuff against the wall, you're going to be a lot more effective, you're going to be a lot more efficient, and you'll get a lot more business. So, any questions? No? All right. Well, I hope to see a couple new listings this week.